Alright, we're going to wrap up Chapter 19 talking about the New Deal Coalition. And really, I don't really get why the chapter's called this, because basically it's wrapping up the New Deal before World War II. But here we go. First off, when FDR went to get reelected, millions literally owed them their jobs, their houses, and any money they had to the New Deal programs. And the Republicans would actually, hurt themselves, would be the full appropriate term for what I was going to say, because they didn't really do much for African Americans. They'd always voted Republican because, well, that was the party of Lincoln. But with them being neglected and none of the programs prior to this really helping them, they'd switch to FDR because he was the only one who seemed to care about them. On top of that, he was very progressive. I mean, this is the 1930s. The Civil Rights Movement wouldn't happen for another 30 years. But he would put several African Americans in key positions of his government. Plus, ladies, you are getting represented. The first woman to ever serve in a cabinet position, one of the high-ranking advisors to the president, would be Frances Perkins, and she'd be the Secretary of Labor. She was the woman who would figure out how to put people back to work. So with that in mind, we go into the election of 1936 against Alfred Landon. He's a Republican from Kentucky. I mean, his only real claim to get people to vote for him was the fact that he just wanted to limit the government. But FDR had the popularity of the New Deal, and it wasn't even close. Like, brutally shut down. Like, straight up flexed on. FDR won every single state except for Maine and Vermont. You know how bad of a candidate you have to be to not even win your own home state? It's bad. I mean, look at that. Sea of blue. And if we look in the bottom right, that goes to FDR. And again, let's remind ourselves that FDR stands for Franklin Delano Roosevelt. I mean, we could talk about the popular vote, which he got over 50% of, so not even close there, but he got all but 1.5% of the electoral votes. Just 8 people did not go to him. Absurd. Okay, so FDR is president. Great. The New Deal continues. Great. Except the Supreme Court's working in the background, performing its checks and balances. It's keeping the president in line. They voted out the, AAA. And Roosevelt literally is quoted as saying that he could not believe that 9 old men could have such power. So, he came up with an idea. What if we pass a law that if after 10 years of serving, you did not retire and you were over 70 years of age, the president could put a new Supreme Court justice or judge in the Supreme Court. And in the 1930s, 1936 to be precise, there were 4 judges, just replace that with judges, if that helps you remember that, were 70 years or older. And there were 2 more about to be there. So that's 4 plus 2. That means FDR will be able to put 6 new judges in place. That's almost replacing the cabinet entirely. Remember, there's only 9 judges on the Supreme Court. And FDR, if this plan worked, would be able to put in 6 more. Now, before we get into the technicalities of why this was such a big oof, the president was legally and still is legally allowed to make changes to the Supreme Court. But you shouldn't do it in a way that makes it look like you're trying to limit the Supreme Court's power, because that goes against the very foundation of our government, the concept of checks and balances. Southern Democrats feared that if there were new judges in, that segregation in the South would be overturned, and there'd be equality. Heaven forbid we have that. How dare we? For the record, I'm being sarcastic here. Segregation is no bueno. But the Southern Democrats, these are your white racists during the 1930s that would go on to fight MLK Jr. and all that during the 60s, did not want that happening. And on top of that, on the flip side, is a president who was against civil rights could put a bunch of judges in there that wanted to say, nah fam, I see your equality and I say no, so long as it's equal. We can be separate. And frankly, neither one of those situations is win-win. So the results of all this, the Supreme Court actually backed down a little bit. They chilled. The Senate was able to, vote on this or pass this bill and they just got rid of it. They kind of just threw it in the trash can. And they didn't have to vote on it, so it didn't go on public record, but people still knew. And people knew that. And this hurt FDR. It made him look like a tyrant, and people didn't really respect that. On top of that, you done messed up when the Democrats and the Republicans actually work together. I mean, look at our government today. You could have the most basic human rights violation, and they'd still find a way to argue over it. But the result of this is that they work together. That almost never happens. And if that wasn't bad enough, just when the economy was starting to look good, FDR kicked the crutches out from underneath the New Deal and watched him fall down the stairs. What do I mean by that? The economy was almost back to where it was prior to the Depression. So FDR tried to balance the budget. He was like, okay, great, things are going good. I'm going to try to get us out of debt. Sounds great. Except he forgot something. There were $2 million about to come out of Social Security from people's paychecks to go into his Social Security program. And that's money people did not have to spend. So when he cut that money, he really truly cut people's spending ability. And people kind of panicked a little bit, and businesses started cutting down jobs, getting rid of waste, etc., etc. And basically, he put himself back to square one. Oops. In his cabinet, though, they were trying to fix things. Remember, FDR surrounded himself with people who did not agree with each other. One group argued that he should try to balance the budget. He's already done it. Just try to fix it. It'll go away. Another group argued for Keynesianism. I can never say this word. Keynesianism. Bless me. Keynesianism. Say it with me now. Keynesianism. This is based on a book written in 1936 by John Maynard Keynes. And all it is it's just saying, you're in the hole, you may as well keep spending, we may as well get the economy jump-starting. Hook up the jumpers to your battery, turn on the other car, and let's go. It's draining the other car, but at some point, both cars will be running, and we can fix it from there. That's the concept. And FDR eventually really didn't have a choice. He waited and waited and waited and tried to balance the budget, but it just didn't work. And this made him look, well, goofy, silly, unintelligent. We're nearing the end of this. I know you guys are tired of more acronyms, more agencies, but I got 3 more coming your way. First and foremost, the National Housing Act. This creates something called the Housing Authority, and these are the people who go out and they help provide homes for the poor, the lower class, people who don't have much money. And this is what you'd see your government housing. You guys would probably call it the hood or the something, I don't know. I'm tired, I can't think of the slang. But this is your cheap, government-subsidized housing that people can afford. It's pretty cheap, it's affordable. It's not exactly the best conditions, but it's there. And remember when I said the AAA, they were paying people not to farm? Yeah, that was eliminated by the Supreme Court. But prior to that, what was happening was farm owners were kicking out their tenants, the people who lived there and farmed that land for them, their tenant farmers. And now those people had no home, no land, no income. So the Farm Security Administration would provide loans. So those tenants could now buy farms. I'm sorry if you heard my chair. It's squeaky and I need WD-40. The Fair Labor Standards Act. This is the one you all can blame for why you're in school. Right now, listening to this video. This is that law right here. So if you're mad at it, you can thank FDR. What this does is outlaws child labor. And with that being said, where are y'all at? School. You're welcome. Thank FDR. The work week, most people can only work 44 hours a week. Most. There are some exceptions. And, happy news, this is when the minimum wage was created. Of course, in 1936, it was $1.25 an hour. Mind you, back in the day, that was some money. $200 for the Townsend plan was really like $4,000. So, I'll let you guys do that math. Last slide, guys. You've made it. I made it. We've all made it. Hallelujah. What is the legacy of the New Deal? At the end of the day, what happened? Well, right here. This is what happened. Again, I'm pointing at the screen like you guys can see this. I'm so used to talking in front of y'all. It limited the success, or limited... Okay, let's step back a second. It had limited success in improving the economy, now that I am done stumbling over my tongue here. And we see the government expanding, and namely from 2 Supreme Court cases. One said the government can regulate production in a state, and the other one said that the government can regulate consumption within a state. And basically, what this creates is a position for the government. They can go in when there's a disturbance in the economy and say, Party A, let's see what you got. Party B, let's see what you got. Alright, I heard both your arguments. Here's how it's going to be. You don't have to like it, you just have to do it. They settle these differences. They're as fair can be, and you know how it is. Nobody's going to be happy all the time. But the real takeaway is we see the people of the United States become dependent on their government. Whereas back under Wilson and Hoover, the government was very hands-off. They played a limited role in your life. There was, oh, well, it sucks that you're unemployed. Better find a new job. Now people are like, I lost my job because of the economy. You should give me some money so I can get by. There's programs and jobs that are made by the government to provide a safety net to help its citizens when things are bad. And most Americans felt the government had a duty. It was expected of the government to maintain that. They had to maintain those programs. Guys, we see them all the time. We're talking food stamps. We're talking government scholarships that help minorities go to school. These are programs that still exist today that stem back from the New Deal. And they're there to help. Many people, however, would argue that the government's too powerful. It's got too much of an influence in our lives. And that being said, we have the debate we have today. Is the government too big, or is it not big enough? And with that, I'll let you think about it.